I have finally had a good experience running Linux on a tablet.
Time is coming when the only chance for privacy is if you move over to Linux. Well, that time is here now. Just recently, Windows got updated and finally the full effect of Windows Copilot is here.
Something is happening in the tablet market that nobody at Microsoft wants to talk about. It is quiet, it is steady, and it is picking up speed in ways that should be making the entire Redmond campus deeply uncomfortable. Linux tablets, not Android, not Chrome OS, not some watered-down hybrid, but full raw GNU Linux running on real tablet hardware, are becoming genuinely usable. And that matters more than any market share number currently suggests.
All are leading to the fact that it actually might be the year of the Linux desktop.
Let us start with the numbers, because even the raw figures tell a story worth paying attention to. Linux holds around 0.22% of global tablet OS share. Windows tablets sit at roughly 0.01%. On paper, both of those numbers are laughably small. But here is the thing about comparing those two figures. Microsoft has spent years and billions of dollars trying to make Windows work on tablets. They built the Surface lineup. They iterated on touch interfaces across multiple generations of Windows. They poured engineering resources, marketing budgets, and executive ambition into making Windows the tablet operating system of choice for professionals and enterprises alike. And after all of that, a community-driven open-source project with no marketing budget, no retail shelf space, and no billion-dollar hardware partner is beating them in their own niche. That is not a small embarrassment. That is a structural problem. The hardware that is making the shift possible is no longer experimental.
And I went ahead through Linux on it, and believe it or not, it was actually a decent experience. We've checked out specific distributions and even dedicated hardware for tablets on Linux, or Linux on tablets, in the past, but it's always felt clunky and just like an unfinished product.
The Minis Forum Vi 3 is a perfect example of what Linux tablets look like right now. Ryzen 8 840U processor, 16 cores, 32 gigabytes of RAM, a 2K display at a 16:10 aspect ratio. This is not a hobbyist device cobbled together in someone's garage. This is a machine that competes spec for spec with anything Microsoft puts inside a Surface Pro. And it runs Linux properly. The kind of properly that makes you stop and reconsider every assumption you had about where this platform was heading. But hardware is only half the story. The reason Linux tablets failed for so many years was not the chips. It was the software experience. Touch interfaces on Linux were notoriously frustrating. Menus would disappear mid-tap. Right-click gestures were unreliable. Virtual keyboards felt like afterthoughts. Rotation behaved unpredictably. The whole thing felt like the desktop Linux world had been ported to a touchscreen by people who had never actually used a touchscreen. And for a long time, that criticism was completely fair. That era is over. What changed everything was KDE Plasma. GNOME still struggles on touch hardware in ways that feel almost deliberately hostile to the format. Menus ghost on tap. Selection gestures misfire. The overall experience communicates clearly that this desktop environment was designed for a mouse and was never seriously rethought for touch. KDE Plasma is a completely different story. Overview navigation flows without hesitation. Gestures respond on the first try. The Dolphin File Manager adapts to touch inputs with the kind of naturalness that takes years of serious development work to achieve. The virtual keyboard is responsive, resizable, and actually useful on a large 2-in-1 screen. Rotation triggers instantly. The whole system feels like it was designed for this, not retrofitted onto it. This is the part of the story that should frighten Microsoft. KDE Plasma on a high-end Linux tablet is now outperforming Windows in touch usability, not in some theoretical benchmark, not in a developer preview. In real daily use, on real hardware, doing real tasks, video editing, streaming, spreadsheets, heavy workloads, even gaming, Linux tablets running KDE Plasma are clearing every bar that Windows tablets needed years to clear, and in many cases they are clearing it higher. And then there is the privacy dimension, which is where the story stops being about market share and starts being about something much bigger. Microsoft's tablet strategy has always come bundled with the broader Windows ecosystem, which means telemetry. It means cloud hooks. It means Copilot integration whether you want it or not. It means Microsoft account pressure during setup. It means updates that arrive uninvited and sometimes break things that were working fine the day before. For a growing segment of users, that package deal is no longer acceptable. developers who want control over their own machines, privacy-conscious professionals who do not want a corporation indexing their daily activity, engineers who need a platform they can customize at every layer of the stack. These people are not switching to Linux because of ideology. They are switching because Linux offers something Windows has stopped offering, which is a computing environment that serves the person using it rather than the company that made it. The setup experience alone communicates this difference immediately. Installing a Linux distribution does not ask you to create an online account. It does not offer you subscriptions. It does not funnel you toward cloud services or lock features behind a Microsoft ID. You boot into your machine. You own your machine. You configure it the way you want it configured. That baseline level of user respect is something Windows has been slowly eroding for years, and people are noticing. Microsoft's response to this erosion has been to double down on exactly the features that are driving people away. Copilot, now embedded deeper into the OS with each update, is the clearest example of this. The pitch is convenience. The reality for a meaningful portion of users is surveillance anxiety. An AI assistant that is always watching your device is not a feature that builds trust. It is a feature that makes people start researching alternatives. And the alternative that keeps coming up is Linux. The trajectory of the broader Linux ecosystem underlines why this moment matters beyond tablets. Desktop Linux is now sitting somewhere between 4.7 and 5% of global market share. Linux software revenue hit $6.54 billion in 20. Embedded Linux continues to expand into specialized hardware across every industry. The compound annual growth rate projections are serious numbers. This is not a hobby anymore. This is a platform that is growing across consumer desktops, professional workstations, server infrastructure, and now tablets simultaneously. Every one of those growth vectors compounds the others. More users means more software support. More software support means the hardware ecosystem expands. A wider hardware ecosystem means more people can realistically switch. The flywheel is turning. What makes the tablet segment specifically dangerous for Microsoft is the symbolism. The Surface Line was supposed to be proof that Windows could own the premium 2-in-1 market. It was Microsoft's answer to the iPad. It was the hardware statement that Windows was a serious tablet operating system for serious people. And now, a scrappy open-source community with devices like the Minis Forum V3 is making Surface look like the less capable option on its own turf. Every glowing review of KDE Plasma on a Linux tablet is a review that used to be written about a Surface device. That reputational ground once lost is extraordinarily difficult to recover. The timeline from niche curiosity to genuine competitive threat is compressing faster than anyone at Microsoft projected. Search interest in Linux tablets was spiking by late 2025 in ways that suggested the conversation was moving beyond enthusiast forums and into mainstream consideration. Developers were talking about it. Enterprises and compliance-heavy industries were asking questions. Privacy-focused users who had been watching from the sidelines were starting to make the jump. The community that builds and refines this ecosystem keeps improving at a pace that does not slow down, does not get distracted by investor narratives, and does not need a quarterly earnings call to justify continued development. Microsoft built a fortress around the personal computing market over 3 decades. They built it with distribution deals, OEM partnerships, enterprise lock-in, and a software ecosystem so broad that switching seemed irrational for most users. That fortress is still standing. But Linux is not attacking the walls. It is building infrastructure underneath them. One usable tablet, one satisfied developer, one converted privacy-conscious professional at a time. The walls look the same from the outside. The foundation is a different story. Bill Gates spent his career making Microsoft the default choice in personal computing. The most unsettling thing about this moment for that legacy is that the shift happening right now does not require Linux to win a war. It only requires Linux to keep improving, and it is, faster than anyone expected. On hardware nobody thought would matter, with a touch experience that nobody believed was possible 2 years ago. The scoreboard still heavily favors Microsoft, but the direction of travel has changed. And in technology, direction matters more than position.